The mansion of billionaire Richard Halden was a palace of glass, steel, and marble, with fountains that danced under the sunlight and gardens that seemed plucked out of paradise, yet inside those golden walls there lived a silence heavy with sorrow, because his only son, little Daniel, though 6 years old, could not walk like other children. He could only crawl on the polished floors, dragging himself forward with tiny arms that shook from the effort, his legs refusing to obey him, his eyes watching other children run past in the park from the window while his heart yearned to join them. The best doctors had been summoned from every corner of the globe, neurologists from Europe, surgeons from America, therapists from Japan, each examining Daniel with their machines, their charts, their practiced words, and all leaving with the same grim conclusion: his condition cannot be reversed, he will never walk, at best he will crawl, at best he will need a chair. And with each verdict, the heart of Richard's wife, Eleanor, broke a little more, while Richard himself, though a man hardened by deals and steel towers, sat in his private study at night staring at the boy's childhood photographs with tears he dared not show anyone. Into this world of wealth and despair came a woman unnoticed, a cleaner named Maria, hired through an agency for the simplest of tasks, dusting the grand staircases, mopping the shining marble, polishing the chandeliers that glistened like captured starlight. She was poor, dressed in simple faded clothes, her shoes worn, her hair tied back with a scarf, yet she carried within her a quiet strength, the kind born from years of struggle, the kind that sees beyond surfaces. She noticed Daniel the very first morning, crawling across the floor of the playroom, abandoned by his nanny who scrolled on her phone, and when their eyes met, hers did not flicker away with pity or discomfort as others did. Instead she smiled, not the rehearsed smile of staff to their employer's child, but the gentle smile of a mother who has known sorrow and hope, and Daniel, shy at first, responded with a small grin that lit his face. Maria's routine soon became more than cleaning. While polishing the floor, she would place little toys just out of Daniel's reach, encouraging him to stretch his arms. While dusting the shelves, she would talk to him as if he were already strong, telling him stories of brave children who overcame mountains, of little birds who learned to fly though their wings were broken. She had a way of speaking that planted courage, and though the therapists came with their charts and routines, it was Maria's presence that made Daniel laugh, that made him push himself harder, crawling further, sweating with determination as she clapped and cheered softly. One day, while everyone else was out, Maria found Daniel in tears, frustrated, pounding his weak legs with his fists, whispering, "Why won't you work? Why won't you work?" And she knelt beside him, her hands rough from years of labor but tender as she held his fists, and she said, "Your legs are listening, Daniel, but they are sleeping. Sometimes, to wake up something that has been sleeping too long, you don't shout at it, you whisper to it, you speak kindly, and you never give up." And with those words she began to show him a simple exercise, gently moving his legs, teaching him to try again, even when he failed. Weeks turned to months, and while the doctors shrugged and therapists logged no measurable progress, Maria saw the flicker of strength returning, the tiny twitches that no one else noticed, the way Daniel's toes curled differently when he concentrated, the way he sat up straighter after weeks of her quiet guidance. She became not just his cleaner, but his secret teacher, his secret hope, and little by little, the mansion began to feel different whenever she was there, filled not with despair but with a fragile kind of faith. Eleanor, one afternoon, entered the playroom and froze, seeing her son balancing on his knees with Maria's hand supporting him, a sight she had never dared imagine. Tears welled in her eyes, yet fear held her tongue, for she could not allow herself to believe in miracles too soon. But deep inside, a spark was lit, and she began to watch Maria closely, sensing that this poor cleaner held something no millionaire could buy. What nobody knew yet was that Maria carried a hidden story, a reason she understood Daniel's pain so well, a reason she believed when everyone else gave up, and it was this hidden truth that would soon change not only Daniel's life, but the destiny of the Halden family forever. The day of transformation came not with thunder or grand speeches, but quietly, on a morning when the sun painted golden streaks through the tall glass windows of the Halden estate, a morning when Daniel was once again crawling across the polished marble floor with Maria by his side, her hands clapping gently, her voice whispering encouragement, her eyes burning with faith that refused to bend, and as Eleanor watched from the doorway, her heart pounding with hope she dared not name. Richard himself stepped in, weary from another night of business and another round of hopeless medical reports, and he almost rebuked the cleaner for meddling with his son, but something stopped him, the sight of Daniel's face glowing with determination, sweat dripping down his forehead, and Maria's calm, steady hands guiding him as though she knew a secret none of them did, and then it happened, slow and trembling, but real. Daniel pressed his palms against the floor, pushed his knees beneath him, wobbled like a tiny bird trying to lift from the ground, and with Maria whispering, "Yes, Daniel, yes, you can," he lifted himself, not crawling, not dragging, but standing, trembling on weak legs that had long been declared useless, a gasp escaping Eleanor's lips, a silence falling over Richard as if time itself had stopped, and then, one step, just one tiny step, but enough to shake the earth beneath their feet. Eleanor collapsed to her knees in tears, Richard's jaw clenched as he turned away to hide his breaking pride, and Daniel laughed, a sound like bells, as he fell into Maria's arms, whispering, "I did it. I stood, Maria, I stood," and in that moment, a poor cleaner had done what millions of dollars and the world's best doctors could not. But Richard, proud and skeptical, could not bring himself to believe fully, and he confronted Maria in the study that night, demanding, "Who are you? What do you know that all the experts don't? What gives you the right to meddle with my boy?" And Maria, her hands folded, her voice steady, revealed the truth she had buried for years. She had once been a promising physical therapist in her homeland, but poverty, corruption, and the death of her husband had forced her to abandon her career, and she had taken work as a cleaner to survive, carrying inside her the knowledge and compassion she could no longer practice openly. She told him of her own child, a daughter who had once been crippled after an accident, whom she had nursed back to walking when the world said she never would, only to lose her to illness later, a pain that nearly destroyed her but left her with a fire to never give up on another child again. And as Richard listened, his anger melted into something he could not admit, respect, mixed with shame that he, with all his billions, had overlooked the one person who truly saw his son. From that day, Maria was no longer just a cleaner, she became Daniel's secret guide, though she asked for no recognition, no raise. Only the chance to help him become strong, and slowly, day after day, Daniel's legs grew sturdier, his balance steadier, until the day came when he ran, yes, ran, across the garden, his laughter echoing against the marble walls, and the mansion that had been filled with sorrow now rang with joy. Eleanor embraced Maria as though she were a sister. Richard, though too proud for tears, held her hands and whispered a thank you that carried the weight of a lifetime, and Daniel himself declared to anyone who would listen, "Maria is my hero, Maria made me walk." And as the world outside marveled at the Halden boy's miracle recovery, the doctors baffled, the newspapers whispering of miracles money can't buy, Richard realized a truth he had long buried. That sometimes the greatest treasures come not from wealth or power, but from hearts that have known pain and chosen compassion, from hands rough with labor but strong with love. And as he stood before his son walking hand in hand with Maria, Richard called a press conference not to boast of medical breakthroughs but to tell the world of an unsung hero, a poor cleaner whose heart had achieved what all his money could not. Maria's name spread like wildfire, yet she remained humble, still carrying her mop and broom, saying, "I only did what love told me to do," and Daniel himself, now stronger every day, promised her that he would grow to help children like himself, to build something bigger than wealth, something that heals. And so the story of the millionaire's son who once could only crawl became not just the story of a boy who walked, but the story of how one woman's courage, one poor cleaner's love, rewrote a destiny written off by the world. And dear viewer, as you watch this miracle unfold, remember, sometimes the people we overlook are carrying the miracles we are praying for. Sometimes the strongest healers come dressed in the humblest clothes, and sometimes the greatest stories are born not in riches but in resilience. So if this story touched your heart, if you believe in unseen heroes like Maria, make sure to subscribe to this channel, because more powerful stories of faith, love, and humanity are coming, and you will not want to miss the next miracle.